Picture this. It's 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Marcus Chen is sitting on his bathroom floor, surrounded by credit card statements, his laptop open to 17 different browser tabs of financial calculators. His hands are shaking as he adds up the numbers for the fourth time, hoping somehow they'll be different. $23,400 in debt. All from buying one innocent leather jacket 8 months ago. How does a single jacket turn into $23,000 of debt? Marcus is about to discover something that changed my entire perspective on money. But before I share what he learned, I need to be clear. This is educational content based on his experience, not personal financial advice for your unique situation. What worked for Marcus might not work exactly the same for you. So please do your own research and consult with qualified professionals before making any financial decisions. Marcus wasn't always drowning in debt. 8 months ago, he was a 34-year-old project manager at a tech startup in Austin, making $72,000 a year. Single, no kids, reasonable rent. He had everything under control. Or so he thought. The jacket happened on a random Thursday evening. Marcus had just closed a major project at work, and his boss mentioned he'd be meeting with some VPs the following week. Walking past a boutique on South Congress, Marcus saw it in the window. Italian leather, perfectly tailored, the kind of jacket that whispered success. $895. He could afford it, he told himself. After all, he deserved something nice after working 60-hour weeks for 3 months straight. But here's where Marcus's story takes an unexpected turn. The jacket didn't just hang in his closet. It sat there, mocking everything else he owned. His 7-year-old dress shoe suddenly looked shabby next to that buttery leather. His department store shirt seemed cheap. His canvas messenger bag? Practically offensive. Within 2 weeks, Marcus had bought new shoes. For $120. They matched the jacket perfectly. Then came the leather messenger bag. $380. New shirts from the same boutique. $160 each, and he bought 4. The old watch his dad gave him for college graduation. Replaced with a Swiss timepiece. $2,800. Stop. Before we go further, you need to know this. What happened to Marcus has a name. It's called the Diderot Effect, and it's been silently destroying bank accounts for over 200 years. Once you understand how it works, you'll see it everywhere. In your closet, your garage, your kitchen, even in your relationships. The effect is named after Denis Diderot, a French philosopher who lived in the 1700s. Diderot was broke most of his life, barely scraping by on his writing. Then Catherine the Great of Russia heard about his financial struggles and bought his library for a fortune. Suddenly, Diderot was rich. The first thing he bought? A beautiful scarlet robe. Gorgeous, luxurious, the kind of thing he dreamed about owning. But then something strange happened. In his new robe, everything else in his study looked terrible. The straw chair seemed pathetic. His old desk was an embarrassment. The prints on his walls looked like garbage. So Diderot replaced them. All of them. The chair, the desk, the prints, the rug. Soon his entire study was transformed, and his fortune was gone. He later wrote an essay called Regrets on Parting with My Old Dressing Gown, where he mourned the loss of his simple life. That scarlet robe had triggered a cascade of consumption that left him poorer than before. But wait, there's something I haven't told you yet about Marcus. The leather jacket was just the beginning. See, when you buy one thing that's nicer than everything else you own, your brain does something fascinating and terrifying. It creates a new identity for you. Marcus didn't just buy a jacket. He bought a story about who he was becoming. I know what you're thinking. This is just about keeping up with the Joneses, right? Wrong. The Diderot Effect is far more insidious because you're not trying to impress anyone else. You're trying to match your possessions to a new version of yourself that only exists in your mind. Marcus's brain had created successful Marcus minus the version of himself who naturally wore $800 jackets and Swiss watches. And once that mental image existed, every purchase that didn't match it felt like a step backwards. His old possessions weren't just unfashionable. They were betraying his new identity. 3 months after the jacket purchase, Marcus's spending had accelerated beyond just clothes. His apartment suddenly felt wrong for successful Marcus. So he moved. From a perfectly fine one-bedroom in East Austin to a luxury high-rise downtown. His rent jumped from $1,400 to $2,600 a month. Here's where Marcus's story reveals something crucial about the Diderot Effect. It doesn't just make you buy things. It changes your baseline for what's acceptable. Marcus's old apartment wasn't broken. It wasn't too small. It had become psychologically incompatible with his new identity. The new apartment needed furniture worthy of its floor-to-ceiling windows and Italian marble countertops. Marcus's IKEA couch looked ridiculous in that space. So did his mismatched dishes, his college posters, his basic TV. Within 60 days, he'd spent another $12,000 furnishing the place. Pause the video right now and ask yourself, have you ever bought one nice thing that made everything else you own look shabby? If you're dealing with the same situation, type YS in the comments. I want to know I'm not the only one who's seen this pattern destroy a budget. The Diderot Effect operates through 3 psychological mechanisms that Marcus was about to discover the hard way. First, there's identity consistency. Your brain desperately wants all your possessions to tell the same story about who you are. When one item is out of place, it creates cognitive dissonance that feels genuinely uncomfortable. Second, there's the escalation of standards. Once you experience a higher quality version of something, your brain resets its baseline. Marcus couldn't go back to department store shirts because his nervous system had registered the Italian cotton as the new normal. Anything less felt like deprivation. Third, and this is the killer, there's the network effect. Every purchase creates connections to other potential purchases. The leather jacket didn't just suggest new shoes. It suggested an entire lifestyle ecosystem. Restaurants where people wore such jackets. Cars that matched that aesthetic. Vacations that successful Marcus would take. By month 5, Marcus had added a car lease to his monthly expenses. His paid-off Honda Civic was embarrassing in the parking garage of his new building. The BMW 3 Series seemed reasonable. Only $649 a month. What's that compared to the image he was building? But Marcus was about to learn something that would change everything. It started with a phone call at 11 p.m. on a Sunday. His credit card was declined at a restaurant. Not just any restaurant, the kind of place where successful Marcus would naturally eat. The humiliation was crushing. His date pretended not to notice while he fumbled for another card. That night, Marcus finally faced the numbers. $23,400 in credit card debt. $2,800 in monthly minimum payments. After rent, car payment, and minimums, he had $300 left from his $6,000 monthly take-home pay. for food, gas, and everything else. The Diderot Effect had done its work perfectly. Starting with one leather jacket, it had reconstructed Marcus's entire financial life around an identity that was literally bankrupting him. But here's what makes this psychological trap so powerful minus even seeing the numbers. Marcus couldn't imagine going backwards. Sell the BMW and drive the Honda again? Move back to a normal apartment. Wear his old clothes. His brain interpreted these options not as financial prudence, but as personal failure. The Diderot Effect had made him psychologically dependent on a lifestyle he couldn't afford. I want you to imagine your Marcus right now, sitting on that bathroom floor. $23,000 in debt, $300 to survive on each month. What would you do? Before I reveal what Marcus did next, what would be your first move? Think about it. Marcus's salvation came from an unexpected source. His 71-year-old neighbor, Mrs. Patricia Williams, knocked on his door the next morning. She'd heard him pacing all night and wanted to check if he was okay. Marcus, exhausted and desperate, found himself confessing everything to this woman he'd barely spoken to before. Mrs. Williams listened without judgment, then said something that changed Marcus's life. Young man, you're not the first person to buy their way into a prison. But you can't buy your way out. You have to think your way out. She invited Marcus to her apartment for tea. Walking in, Marcus expected luxury to match the building. Instead, he found simplicity. Nice furniture, yes, but nothing excessive. Everything quality but understated. Mrs. Williams, it turned out, was worth several $1 million. She'd retired early from running a successful consulting firm. Let me guess, she said, pouring tea from a simple ceramic pot. You bought one nice thing, and suddenly nothing else was good enough? Marcus's shock must have shown on his face. Mrs. Williams smiled. The Diderot Effect. It almost got me too, back in 1987. She told Marcus her story. At 35, she'd received her first big bonus. Bought a designer handbag. Within a year, she'd upgraded everything she owned and was deeper in debt than when she'd been making minimum wage. The handbag wasn't the problem, she explained. The story I told myself about what owning it meant minus, that was the problem. Here's what Mrs. Williams taught Marcus that afternoon, and it's the antidote to the Diderot Effect that I wish everyone understood. You can't fight this psychological pattern by willpower alone. You need a stronger story about who you are than the story your possessions are telling. Mrs. Williams called it identity architecture. Instead of letting purchases define who you are, you consciously create an identity that guides your purchases. Her identity wasn't wealthy Patricia. It was Patricia who builds wealth. Every purchase either supported that identity or threatened it. When you're tempted to upgrade something, she told Marcus, ask yourself, does this purchase make me someone who builds wealth or someone who displays wealth? Those are two completely different identities. Marcus was skeptical. How could changing a story in his head fix $23,000 of debt? Mrs. Williams pulled out a yellow legal pad. Let's do an exercise. Tell me about successful Marcus minus, the one who needed all those things. For 20 minutes, Marcus described this imaginary version of himself. The clothes he wore, the places he went, the things he owned. Mrs. Williams wrote it all down. Then she asked a question that hit Marcus like a punch. How much debt does successful Marcus have? The answer was obvious. Successful Marcus would have zero debt. He'd have investments, savings, freedom. The identity Marcus had been chasing was internally contradictory. He'd been buying the costume of success while creating the reality of failure. Now, Mrs. Williams said, let's design a new identity. Not successful Marcus minus that's an outcome. Who is the Marcus that becomes successful? This is where Marcus's transformation began. They spent 2 hours crafting what Mrs. Williams called an identity statement. Not goals or wishes, but a clear description of who Marcus was choosing to become. They called him Building Marcus. Building Marcus wore quality clothes that he bought strategically. He lived in a space that supported his goals, not his ego. He drove reliable transportation that didn't chain into payments. Most importantly, Building Marcus got excited about growing wealth, not displaying it. The shift sounds simple, but it revolutionized how Marcus saw every financial decision. The BMW lease? Building Marcus would never trap himself in a depreciating asset. The luxury apartment. Building Marcus would live somewhere nice but not at the expense of his future. But knowing and doing are different things. Marcus still had $23,000 in debt and a lifestyle built for someone making twice his salary. Mrs. Williams helped him create what she called the reverse Diderot plan. Instead of one purchase triggering upgrades, Marcus would use one change to trigger downgrades. But and this was crucial minus, each downgrade had to align with Building Marcus's identity. He wasn't becoming poor. He was becoming smarter. The first change was the apartment. Marcus's lease was month to month, so he could leave anytime. But instead of seeing it as retreat, he reframed it as strategy. Building Marcus would live in a cool spot in East Austin, save $1,200 a month, and invest the difference. Finding the new place became an adventure in identity reinforcement. Marcus looked for somewhere that Building Marcus would choose minus not fancy but interesting, not luxury but quality. He found a garage apartment behind a historic house with character and charm. $1,400 a month. Half his current rent. Moving day was psychological warfare. Everything in Marcus's brain screamed that he was going backwards. But Mrs. Williams had prepared him for this. The Diderot Effect will fight back, she'd warned. It will tell you that changing means failing. Remember minus, you're not moving down. You're moving forward. The garage apartment was smaller, but had huge windows and original hardwood floors. Marcus realized something profound minus. It actually suited him better than the sterile luxury high-rise. Building Marcus valued character over convention. Next came the BMW. This was harder because of the lease terms, but Mrs. Williams knew a strategy. Marcus found someone looking to take over a lease just like his. He paid $1,000 transfer fee minus painful, but necessary minus and got his Honda out of storage. I know what you're thinking minus this sounds like deprivation. But Marcus discovered something unexpected. Driving his paid-off Honda felt like freedom. No monthly payment hanging over his head. No worry about door dings or maintenance costs. Building Marcus had transformed a downgrade into an upgrade. The clothes were the most psychologically complex challenge. That leather jacket had started everything. Marcus couldn't bring himself to sell it immediately. Mrs. Williams said that was fine. Keep it, she advised. But make it serve Building Marcus instead of successful Marcus. Marcus created a new rule. He could keep any clothing that truly brought value to his life, but everything had to earn its place. He spent a weekend evaluating each piece. Did it support Building Marcus's goals? Was it versatile? Quality? Worth the space it took up? He kept about 40% of what he'd bought, sold 30% on consignment, and donated the rest. The leather jacket stayed, but its meaning changed. Now it reminded him of expensive lessons learned, not status to maintain. Here's where Marcus's story takes an unexpected turn. With $1,200 saved on rent and $649 saved on the car payment, plus money from selling clothes, Marcus had $1,800 extra each month. But old patterns die hard. The first month, Marcus caught himself browsing furniture websites. Building Marcus deserved a nice couch, right? He was saving so much money he could afford it. The Diderot Effect was trying to restart itself with a new story. This is the hidden danger Mrs. Williams had warned about. The Diderot Effect doesn't disappear. It adapts. It will try to convince you that your new identity needs new things. Building Marcus could easily become another expensive costume. Marcus needed what Mrs. Williams called identity anchors minus concrete reminders of who he was becoming. He started tracking his net worth weekly. Seeing the dead decrease in savings increase became more addictive than any purchase. Building Marcus measured progress in dollars saved, not dollars spent. He also created environmental barriers. Marcus unsubscribed from every shopping email, deleted shopping apps, and avoided his old haunts on South Congress. He found new places where Building Marcus would naturally spend time, minus the library, hiking trails, free concerts. But the most powerful strategy was replacement activities. When Marcus felt the urge to buy something, he'd ask, "What am I really trying to purchase?" Usually, it was a feeling. Confidence, excitement, progress. So he found ways to create those feelings without spending. Want confidence? Marcus started working out at his apartment complex's gym. Free, effective, and Building Marcus was getting stronger. Want excitement? He joined an investment club that met weekly to discuss strategies. Want progress? He volunteered to teach financial literacy at a community center. 6 months into his transformation, Marcus hit a milestone. His credit card debt dropped below $10,000. He'd paid off $13,000 in 6 months while building a $3,000 emergency fund. Building Marcus was becoming real. But then something happened that tested everything. Marcus got promoted. Senior project manager, $95,000 salary. A 30% raise. His first thought? Now I can afford the lifestyle I had before. Stop. This moment minus right here minus, this is where most people fail. They see increased income as permission to increase spending. The Diderot Effect has been waiting for this moment. It whispers, "You've sacrificed enough. You deserve nice things now." Marcus called Mrs. Williams in a panic. He could feel the old patterns pulling at him. She invited him over for tea again. This time, she showed him something that changed his perspective forever. Mrs. Williams pulled out a photo album. Pictures of her at Marcus's age, then through the decades. In her 30s, modest apartment, used car, simple clothes. 40s, same thing but better quality. 50s, nice house but not extravagant. Now in her 70s, she lived in the same luxury building as Marcus but owned her unit outright. Notice anything? She asked. Marcus studied the photos. Your lifestyle barely changed even as your income grew, Mrs. Williams smiled. My lifestyle improved slowly. My wealth grew quickly. That's the difference between building and displaying. She showed Marcus her investment statements. The numbers were staggering. Millions accumulated not through windfalls, but through decades of living below her means and investing the difference. Every dollar you don't spend on lifestyle inflation is a dollar that can work for you forever, she explained. This is the master key to defeating the Diderot Effect long term. You must disconnect your spending from your income. Building Marcus doesn't spend more just because he earns more. He invests more. Marcus made a radical decision. He would maintain his current lifestyle for 1 full year despite the raise. Every extra dollar would go to dental elimination and then investing. His colleagues would get new cars and bigger apartments. Building Marcus would get freedom. The psychological pressure was intense. Co-workers talked about their upgrades. Friends wondered why Marcus still drove an old Honda. Dating was awkward when matches expected a certain lifestyle based on his job title. The Diderot Effect tried new angles of attack. But Marcus had learned to recognize the pattern. Each temptation to upgrade was just his brain trying to create consistency between his income and possessions. He didn't need consistency. He needed wealth. By month 9 of his new salary, Marcus had 0 credit card debt and $10,000 in savings. The feeling was indescribable. Not just relief minus power. Building Marcus had money working for him, instead of payments working against him. Here's what's crucial to understand. The Diderot Effect never fully goes away. It's a fundamental pattern in how our brains process identity and possessions. But you can redirect it. Instead of consistency between objects, Marcus created consistency between actions and identity. Mrs. Williams taught him one final technique. Identity investing. Every time Marcus was tempted to upgrade something, he'd invest the money instead. Want a new couch? Invest the $1,000. Tempted by a watch? That shares in an index fund. Then came the plot twist. Marcus labeled each investment with what he didn't buy. His portfolio had entries like couch fund, watch fund, vacation fund. Watching these grow became more satisfying than owning the items would have been. A year after his promotion, Marcus's net worth had shifted from negative $23,000 to positive $35,000. A $58,000 swing in 18 months. But more importantly, his identity had fundamentally changed. Building Marcus wasn't a costume anymore. It was who he'd become. The thought of leasing a BMW seemed absurd now. Why would he chain his money to a depreciating asset? His garage apartment felt like freedom, not limitation. The real test came when Marcus started dating Sarah, a marketing director who made good money and lived a typical lifestyle for their peer group. Would he feel pressure to upgrade to match her expectations? Their third date, Marcus picked her up in his Honda. He decided to be upfront about his financial philosophy. If she judged him for his car, better to know early. Instead, Sarah was intrigued. You make 6 figures and drive a paid-off Honda. Tell me more. Marcus explained his journey, the Diderot Effect, building Marcus versus successful Marcus. Sarah listened intently, then shared her own struggle. She made good money, but saved nothing. Her apartment was Instagram perfect and her bank account was empty. Show me, she said. Not the words Marcus expected on a third date. But Sarah was serious. She wanted to understand how to break her own Diderot cycles. They spent the evening reviewing her finances, identifying her triggers. Sarah's Diderot moment had been a designer planner. Sounds innocent, but that planner led to designer pens, then a designer desk, then a home office renovation, then a whole apartment that looked like a Pinterest board but cost her entire salary to maintain. Together, they created Building Sarah minus someone who valued experiences and security over aesthetics. The transformation wasn't instant, but Sarah started making changes. Within months, she'd downsized apartments and started investing. Here's what makes their story powerful. When two people commit to building wealth instead of displaying it, the Diderot Effect loses its social pressure component. Marcus and Sarah reinforced each other's building identities instead of triggering upgrade cycles. They developed shared rituals around building wealth. Friday nights reviewing investments instead of expensive dinners. Saturdays hiking instead of shopping. They GIMF'd saving, competing to see who could find better deals or invest more each month. 2 years after that bathroom floor breakdown, Marcus's life was unrecognizable. Not because of what he owned minus he still lived simply, but his net worth approached 6 figures. He'd started a side business teaching others about the Diderot Effect. Sarah had become his partner in building wealth in life. Mrs. Williams, now 73, became their unofficial mentor. She'd smile when they'd share their progress. "You two understand something most people never learn," she'd say. "Wealth isn't about having nice things. It's about having choices." The Diderot Effect still whispered occasionally. "Hey colleagues, new Tesla would trigger brief envy. A friend's luxury vacation photos would create momentary FOMO. But Marcus had built immunity through practice and identity reinforcement. He kept the leather jacket. It hung in his closet as a reminder. $895 that had almost cost him his future, but instead taught him to build one. Sometimes the most expensive mistakes become the most valuable lessons. I want you to pause right now and think about your own Diderot moment. What purchase started an upgrade cycle in your life? Maybe it wasn't dramatic like Marcus's story. Maybe it was subtle minus a new phone that made your laptop seem old, a kitchen gadget that made your whole kitchen feel outdated. The Diderot Effect is operating in your life right now, whether you recognize it or not. It's in the car that makes your garage look shabby, the outfit that makes your wardrobe feel dated, the vacation that makes your daily life feel insufficient. But here's the hope in Marcus's story. You can reverse the effect. You can choose identity over objects, building over displaying, wealth over appearance. It starts with recognizing the pattern and deciding who you want to become. Building you is waiting. Not the you who owns impressive things, but the you who builds an impressive life. The you who finds satisfaction in growth, not goods. The you who measures worth in net worth, not networks of possessions. The transformation isn't easy. Your brain will resist. Society will pressure. The Diderot Effect will adapt and attack from new angles. But thousands of people have broken free from this psychological trap, and you can too. Start small. Identify one area where the Diderot Effect is operating. Maybe it's clothing, technology, home decor, or vehicles. Notice how one purchase led to others, how your identity shifted to match your possessions instead of the other way around. Then create your building identity. Who is the version of you that builds wealth? What do they value? How do they make decisions? Write it down like Mrs. Williams had Marcus do. Make it specific and inspiring. Find your identity anchors. Track progress that matters minus debt decreasing, savings growing, investments compounding. Create environmental barriers against mindless upgrades. Replace shopping with activities that reinforce your building identity. Most importantly, understand that this is not about deprivation. Building you doesn't live worse minus they live strategically. They don't own less minus they own intentionally. They don't sacrifice minus they invest in what truly matters. The Diderot Effect wants you to believe that you are what you own. That your possessions define your success, your identity, your worth. It's a lie that's made corporations rich and kept generations in debt. The truth Marcus discovered is revolutionary. You define your possessions, not the other way around. Your identity shapes your choices, not your purchases. Building wealth is the ultimate rebellion against a system designed to keep you spending. 18 months from now, you could be telling your own transformation story. How you recognize the Diderot Effect's influence, chose a building identity, and changed your financial future. How you stopped letting possessions control your life and started building real wealth. Or you could still be upgrading, still be trapped in cycles of consumption, still be letting one purchase trigger another in an endless cascade of spending. The choice happens in moments like this, when you see the pattern and decide to break it. Marcus's $23,000 debt started with an $895 jacket. But his six-figure net worth started with a decision. The decision to stop letting things define him and start defining himself. Your Diderot moment might have been different. Maybe it was a house that stretched your budget, a car that came with unexpected costs, a lifestyle that looked successful but felt like prison. Whatever it was, it doesn't have to define your future. Building you is one decision away. One choice to value wealth over appearance, growth over goods, freedom over fashion. The Diderot Effect loses its power the moment you choose a stronger story about who you're becoming. Mrs. Williams is right. You can't buy your way out of the trap. You have to think your way out. And thinking starts with seeing the pattern, understanding the psychology, and choosing a different path. Your wallet's silent enemy has been exposed. The Diderot Effect only works in darkness, when you don't recognize its influence. Now you see it. Now you can fight it. Now you can build the life you actually want, not the one your possessions dictate. The question isn't whether the Diderot Effect is operating in your life. It is. The question is whether you'll let it control your financial future, or whether you'll take control yourself. Marcus chose control. Sarah chose control. Thousands of others have chosen control. What will you choose? Thank you so much for watching Marcus's incredible journey with me today. I know your time is valuable, and the fact that you spent it here learning about financial transformation means the world to me. Marcus's story proves that financial transformation is possible, but every person's journey is unique. I want to hear about why your situation minus what's the biggest financial challenge you're facing right now. Drop a comment below and let me know. I read every single comment and I'll personally respond to as many as I can. And if Marcus's story inspired you to take action in your own financial life, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We share real stories from real people about their money journeys every week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Your financial transformation starts with a single decision. What will yours be? Remember, Marcus's journey might look different from yours. This content is for educational purposes only. Please do your own research and consider speaking with a financial advisor who understands your specific situation before making any major financial decisions. Every person's financial situation is unique, and what worked for Marcus may not be exactly right for your circumstances.